Hey guys, it's Tojo here. Welcome to the 5th installment of developer game videos for my game Soul Invictus. If you've just jumped into this as your first video, Soul Invictus is a solo indie developer game that I'm making. There's a lot of detail in my devlog, which is in the links below, and also in my Steam page. Please go to my Steam page and wishlist it if you like what you see. Okay, so in this video I'm going to be looking at a few things, well, quite a mix of things actually. I'll probably touch a little bit on the chat window that you can see in the bottom left that I've made a few tweaks with, a bit about debugging, some stuff around partying up, and some sort of follow behaviors, and then maybe a little bit around a bit more on the AI that we've already spoken about. It's a bit of a mix of things, and I know I promised you a video on AI formations that will come up. I think what ended up happening was I put a load of fixes into the game and tweaked a few things here and there, and actually came up with there's a bit more to discuss on stuff that I've already covered, and then I'll get on to formations for the next video. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just quickly go through, firstly I think I'll go through some of the debugging aspects of the game, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the changes you might have seen, or if you're very perceptive, spotted around maybe the sky and the lighting that will come up that I've done, and then I'll talk about the chat window a little bit and maybe some stuff around the controls. So firstly, if I show some of the debugging, so in the bottom left you can see I've got a chat window, and in chat window it's putting back basically feedback that your player hears near you, and also probably some system feedback, and then if you change the combat window it should provide some a bit more detail around your combat strikes and things like that. If I switch on debugging visuals, so what I've done is made a few hotkeys that are useful in development. I'll probably be turning them off for the game, or at least I might have some sort of console to be able to activate them. But basically, debug visuals on. As you can see, I turned around and here's the soul stones. What's happening here is you can see a grid with a load of target points on them. Now these target points are fixed points based on the bounds of the grid and collider that's used, and it basically, what it does is tell the system and the AI that these are good places to stand when attacking the stones, and when attacking in formation particularly, or as a group, it stops, or it spreads people out nicely such that you might see in certain games where sort of characters spread around the target and attack it nicely. This is the first steps along that line. There's more to do. I'll be looking at eventually having people swap and move around based on these positions, and have the positions created dynamically. These are at the moment dynamically created but static on the object, so when the object moves and things like that, it will stay static. So all of that's to come, but for now basically what it is guidelines for people that are coming to attack this, that shows where's the best place to hit. Right, so what I've got is this hotkey that turns off and on visuals. So as you can see, they're on and now they're off. In the bottom left hand side you can see I've got a little debug mechanic that basically tells you what's going on with the debug commands you're using. Okay, I think that's probably all I want to talk about in terms of the grid, and I'll get on to a bit more of the debug visuals later when we're looking at some of the following behavior and things like that. Other debug commands, I suppose, are the command to increase your XP. If you look at the bottom bar at the bottom, my bar is gently filling by about 500 XP each time, and then if you go to the top it will get to level up. Right, so that's just a simple way of just checking and level up mechanic, and I know we'll be using it later in other videos for getting to different levels to be able to demonstrate abilities and things like that. Also I've got simple ones for damaging myself and healing myself, as you can see, with 20 HP. if you missed it, this is all going on in the bottom left window, as you can see under the main tab. And then I have sort of abilities to be able to just turn the time speed up a little bit and down a little bit. So you can set the game speed to 100, and as you can see, it's gone to night time. And then I can reset it down when it gets to daytime again, so just before daytime. And then if I speed it up again, there we go, it's going to daytime at sort of 11 o'clock. Now, interestingly, that debug command is just for the game speed. It's not for anything or anyone interacting in the game. So, you know, the AI still behaves at the slow pace that it's been behaving, but it's just time is moving faster around them. Okay, so these are going to be useful for later when I'm sort of demonstrating things with the AI, and in fact, I might go and do that now. As you can see, the chat window is quite good for just general feedback. I've tried to make it fairly clear that the font's fairly big, so there is a scroll bar in there as well. To access that, effectively, I've got a hotkey just to turn the mouse on. And again, I think I'll be thinking a bit more about that in future when I move to console and Steam Deck capabilities. That mouse is just a difficult thing to use in those contexts, so I'll be thinking about that a bit more later. Okay, so that was a bit about the chat window and about debug, a bit about AI, I suppose, and lighting. As you might have seen, the lighting has changed a little bit subtly since the last time round. What I've done is I've applied the linear color scheme, linear color system and space on Unity to basically provide a bit more complex lighting to the game. What that kind of does is it basically additively blends color together in kind of a linear space, rather than in Gamma where things are kind of applied like slap bang on top of each other, I suppose is a very, very sort of layman way of putting it. But the impact that it does, it means that the lighting gets a bit more realistic, and the colouring is a little bit more realistic. So as you can see, things are a little bit more drab than they probably were before, and a bit less cartoony. That's a result of that change. And basically, really effectively, what it means is when we come to do stuff with point lights and campfires and torches and things like that, it makes a big difference in terms of the behaviors for those. So I'll show that probably just in a second. Right, so I think in the last video I talked a little bit about Gope and the AI system, and the fact that the guys sort of turn on and off this campfire. I didn't actually demonstrate that, so now that we have the sort of speed up controls, I can do that quite easily. So if I speed up the time, okay, so what's going to happen is dusk's going to hit about 5 o'clock, and we should see one of the chaps request that the campfire be lit because it's really cold. So someone goes and done access to that request. Basically what happens is in the Gope system that we talked about, someone fires out a request, and then a nearby person hearing that request, well, effectively anyone who hears that request, assigns to their belief that someone needs the fire on, and then anyone near the campfire will basically evaluate that. If they get to a position where they're in a good place to turn the light on, they'll say, I'm going to turn the campfire on, guys, and then everyone else will then ignore that request for the time being whilst the person turns the light on. That's how the kind of system works from a beliefs point of view. Basically, you evaluate the requests, you get assigned beliefs, and then from those beliefs are achieved, you achieve the goals such as turning lights on and things like that. So that's Gope in a nutshell for that kind of interaction. It's quite a simple example, but it's a good one in terms of it sort of uses a belief system and sort of the relationship between AIs and things like that. Okay, cool. So as that's happened, what you can see down the bottom left in the chat window and also on the screen is that they're talking effectively. So Thug2 says, could someone light the campfire? And Thug4 says, yes, I'll go and do it. And you might have seen that a little speech bubble appears above their heads to say that, although I am at a distance to be able to clearly read it, but that's what happens. So more of those things will happen on a daily basis, and are getting more interactions and chats going on between these kind of AIs, and that's kind of where the game's going to head in terms of that kind of sort of interactive and useful NPC kind of situation. So I'll be doing that moving forward, but it's a good example of the chats and the chat window being used. Okay, and as you see, the campfire's on. So if I speed up the time again, it gets dark. Actually, I'll slow it down now to 1. So what you might have noticed before, and I sort of mentioned a little bit around lighting, is that before it goes pretty dark, and it is still pretty dark around me, if I sort of go to third person mode, you can see there's a bit of light over here, enough to maybe deal with a very nearby threat, but not much else besides. I don't know where I'm going to go. I can't see the near sort of view of the world. With the lights in place that I've put, I think before, what you might have seen in this kind of scenario is that actually it's pitch black. You couldn't see Severus's character model, so I've changed that to have effectively halo around you, so there is a level of low lighting around each player. Anyway, what I've also done is I've increased the lighting range of all point lights, so the campfire and the torches. So if I put my torch on, you can see instantly make a big difference in terms of visibility. Now, these are both crude, so the campfire in the distance and this torch here are both crude torches, so they're a level of radius that's useful but not perfect, right? I mean, I'm not seeing far into the distance now. And that will change, there'll be other torches and other campfires, bonfires and larger hearths and things like that make lighting really good and really bright and make it indoors seem like, daytime almost when it's light. So that's something in the pipe works, and we'll be building on that in future. But basically what it means from this point of view is that it means I can, by changing what I talked about earlier, but changing the colouring from gamma to linear, and by putting that tone mapping post-processing in place, I can really ramp up the level of lighting that point lights give you, such that you can get a really big light going on that's realistic to the object being held, and moves and things like that with those objects. But with doing that without blowing out the character at very near level, so that you can still make out some of the detail on the character model, and it's not completely white and sort of haloed basically. So that's one of the changes that I've put in place since the last video. Okay, I think that's enough about lighting because it's a fairly dry subject. Right, so where we left the last video was that we talked to Bridget and she walked off. We basically declined her offer of joining the party. What I'm going to do is just kind of get rid of my torch, speed up time again. And as you can see, another interaction happens over there. I can sort of run forward a little bit. Missed the chat bubble, but basically, as you see in the bottom left, they want to tidy the camp before the boss notices. There's first indication that actually, something's coming. And there's, when we have a dialogue with Bridget, you'll see that too, that effectively there's an indicator from the conversation there that all is not well, something's going to happen, so that you're kind of I guess broadcasting or telegraphing things that will happen later on in the story. So at the moment it's saying let's tidy the camp before the boss notices, so the idea is that it kind of indicates there is a boss that effectively is in charge of these guys and something might happen in future. Okay, so it's a little bit subtle, but that's kind of what that's doing. What I'm going to do is sleep. So if you remember right, what we did was sleep in the sleeping mat, and then it progresses on, and the story progresses a little bit, and you get stabbed. So we'll do that now. Okay, while we're on the screen, I've just made a few changes, tweaks to the colours to bring them more in line with the colour scheme, and fix some bugs around the button. Okay, as you can see, our chaps are attacking. We might have touched a little bit on the grid before, but as you can see, here's the attack grid. The guys are lining up on that attack grid to attack the stones. Okay, and as you can see at the top, the damage, the stones being damaged. So what I'm going to do is kill these guys before they do too much damage, and we'll go on to the next bit. Okay, so I've equipped my sword. I'm going to whack them over the head with the sword, and as I hit them, they're coming to attack me. And I've leveled up, and then the cutscene for collapsing appears. It's daytime again, and I've got rid of my sword. Right. So this is kind of where we left you before. We're going to have a quick chat with Bridget, and this time we're going to accept her to the party. So I'm going to click through. I'm sure the story will change before you know, any sort of beta release or anything like that, so I'm not going to spend much time on the story, but basically it's trying to show that the guys ahead of you are from the Hamden Brigands, and they might come back again in the evening. So I'm going to continue. Look, she's saying that she wants to join. This time I'm going to accept Bridget's offer. And end the dialogue. Okay, so what's happened? Well, in the top left you can see the party screen has appeared, so Bridget's appeared underneath your profile. We leveled up in the melee, so we're now level 2 warrior at the top left. And then also I've got a little icon to indicate that I'm the party leader, the little crane on the right hand side. And then Bridget's profile's below, and you can see her health, stamina and fatigue bar. Cool, okay, so that just indicates that she's in the party. But what else has happened? So from an AI point of view, as you can see, if I turn around, she stood behind you, right? So if I move, and what I'm going to do is just move around a little bit, she kind of tries to follow you, which is really good. So from a party position, if there are NPCs in parties, they'll just generally follow you like this. Now, what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about this because the precursor to some of the more complicated discussions around formations that we're doing in the next video. But basically, steering in AI seems like a simple thing, but it can be quite complicated. One of the more sort of simpler things that I've added to the game around steering is this kind of concept of follow objects. So I've just turned debug visuals on, as you can see in the bottom left. And what you can see on Bridget is she's got a yellow blob on her. Now that yellow blob is going to be similar for most AIs, and in the distance you might see some yellow blobs. You can't quite see them, but over there, determining where they're going to be steering to, and this is what I call a steering object. This steering object basically dictates for the nav agent what the next target is in terms of their behavior, in terms of what they're moving to and what they're interacting with, right? So that steering object basically is a game object that just can be set around the place to indicate you know, the steering target. Now what you can do quite simply is just say, well, let's just make a little script to directly follow Severus, right? So if I was directly following Severus, we'll probably be in this kind of position, i.e. Bridget's sort of some way directly behind me like this, and we'd go through that position. I'd move forward, and then eventually she would move forward, and we'd kind of quick to a quite static, quite robotic kind of group movement. Now what I've done is introduced a level of indirection there, so that we can probably, you know, provide a bit more human behavior to what we do in real life. So so I guess what that means is that what I've done is I've added an extra object that's invisible behind myself. That's a kind of a steering object as well, and that steering object has got a different behavior to the one that's basically what I call a follow object. Now that follow object will just basically move and follow around me, but it only moves and follows around me after a certain point of movement. and after a certain degree of that movement, and doesn't get updated as a result of me, for example, rotating. Now, if we were in this position where she was directly following me, if I rotate to the left, you probably expect her, if she was to follow the command of follow directly behind me for 2 meters, if we were implementing that behavior, you'd expect her to just wheel and follow directly behind me. Now, I don't think that's very human behavior, because as you sort of rotate and look around the world, her just moving randomly behind you, it's not a nice look. So what I've done is I put this in direction in, and as you can see, I'm rotating and she's not moving. So she'll only start moving when I move a certain level away from her. Now, interestingly, it also introduces the concept of hysteresis, which is basically there being a difference between the distance that she starts following with me and the distance that she is following me. So it's a little bit subtle, but basically what it means is that at the moment, if I move over here, the yellow blob goes to 2 meters behind me. However, if I move forward 1, she's not following me anymore. And basically the distance for her to start following again is further away, and what this means is it gives a bit of a lag, and also closer. It gives a bit of a lag that's kind of a bit human-like, that actually it determines whether I'm just sort of stepped forward or if I'm actually heading off. If I've just stepped forward, I wouldn't want her to follow me, but if I am heading off and we've gone sort of a bit further away, then the steering ball follows me, updates over time, as you can see a bit better there, and then she follows that from a pathing point of view. So that's kind of basic steering behavior I've touched on the party interface and the UI up there, top left. I think I'll probably leave it there. That steering behavior is kind of a simple one-to-one kind of behavior at the moment. What we'll see next video is when lots of people are involved and how they behave over a group, and that's what I'm calling formations at the moment. So we'll get onto the formations video hopefully next week. Okay, thanks everyone for your time, guys. Please have a look at my devlog and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you like the game, and please do like the game, but if you like the game, please wishlist it on Steam, because it really helps, and that's probably the most important thing for me, is just getting those wishlists up on Steam for the game before we get to a position where we start doing demos and things like that. Okay, thanks everyone, and speak next week. Bye.